So one of the things I mentioned with the Microsoft trying to shove AI into everything is that it's not AI. And it's kind of convenient that Richard Stallman is like the only one I've seen in recent memory um, point out what I've been saying for several years now with this, the memification, this buzzword of, AI, is that, what they're calling AI is not artificial intelligence. They're large language model chatbots. And, you know, just because you can have something that does image recognition and can, do natural language processing and this and that. And just because, it can pass the Turing test, aka it can fool a human into thinking it's another human, doesn't mean it's artificial intelligence. All right. If a chatbot can pass the Turing test, all that means is that humans are stupid. Um, but they're not artificial intelligence. They don't have they're not intelligent. They don't have any true ability to learn or apply that knowledge. It's just neural networks just take data sets and compute them, right? It's like inputs become an output, right? It's a black box clusterfuck. And I mean, it truly is just doing math, right? I mean, convolutional neural networks, this is nothing new to anybody that's into image processing stuff like I am. I mean, part of this whole lockdown of the internet shit is I've been archiving a lot of shit, and I'm thinking about doing my own manual archives. But just something I've noticed in the last year or so, or not necessarily noticed, but has become more poignant with time, is it just the mass destruction of data, and as I said, you know, this is the book burning now as they just, you know, the sites going down and this and that is indirect ways of doing this. Or if they stop me from being able to speak, like for an example, like I'll say a lot that, you don't have to burn a book that never got written, right? But the the just how hard it hits with this modern pseudo AI psychosis. Like I never really thought when I played Deus Ex and especially Invisible War. When I played the first one on PS2 when I was 11. The same year I played Half-Life and Red Faction and Metal Gear Solid 2. You know, quite a doozy. And then when I was 12 on Xbox, I played Invisible War. And holy, like, dude, I wish I understood what I was, observing at the time. I used to love technology. I thought there was so many things that could be done with it, like for good, right? So I guess you could say I had a utopic idea, like cyber utopia type of ideology of the internet. And this is like the last bastion of weirdos like me to find somebody that's on their wavelength or something. And of course not, but it's just normal fags. It's not in shitification, it's normal fagification. Everything just gets normal fagified and gets commodified. They even commodify homosexuality. All these gay terms that are just, they're like regular words now, right? And just, there's just so much to it. But it makes Invisible War more and more, relevant and poignant as time goes on, more so than the original. And as I sort of mentioned in that one post I made, Invisible War has never gotten the credit it deserves because there's really nothing the original did that Invisible War doesn't do. And then on top of that, Invisible War does even more than that. And the biggest thing about it, and what I think of every time I play the game, to compare it to the modern era, 22 or like 23 years later, is NG resonance in Invisible War. NG resonance even according to the game, even how it describes itself as a chatbot that's actually a it's an informant, right? So like you can actually basically in the game you can rat people out to NG resonance for monetary rewards and this and that. You can even feed it bullshit information, right? So like, and then like there's this club at the start of the game in the Seattle part that basically will get raided and shut down depending on what you tell the bot. But I mean, you could also tell the bot, oh, I don't know anything. It doesn't seem like there's anything going on, right? Or like whatever. But the idea of a, sort of Turing test passing chatbot kind of pseudo AI that also functions as a mass surveillance program, that is the modern era of computing. Everything is a surveillance tool, right? Your phone is surveillance, the internet is surveillance, right? Like having to use this stupid Wi-Fi bridge to connect my laptop to the internet through a proxy. And that is some shit that Windows did a silent update. It had to be, because at one point, I mean, my internet just stopped working. Like I couldn't connect directly to the Wi-Fi. I couldn't even, do a hotspot on my phone like a regular one, like the built-in thing. I had to install what I'm using now, and part of that requires connecting to that and setting up a proxy on the computer. And that is something that started maybe 4 months ago. And when that happened, I looked it up, and Windows had done an update, some type of update that said fucked up stuff for a lot of people. But my point being with that is that with the stupid Wi-Fi bridge app or whatever they call it, um, it will not work unless you have location enabled, which is pulling from your GPS. Okay, well, why would that be? Why would it need your location enabled to run a Wi-Fi bridge program? Well, there's only one reason, because if you didn't do that, as far as it knew, your location was wherever the Wi-Fi was at, because it'll do geolocation off the IP. And so basically what that means is, for example, you could be connected to a public network, a public Wi-Fi, or someone else's Wi-Fi. If you had a range extender, or just however you had it set up, you could essentially connect to a network whose location was not your actual physical location. That's why they want you to have location enabled, because they don't want you to even be able to use that as a method to hide. And like I had to work that one in reverse, because I never even thought about that. Like I understood the concept of public networks being used as obfuscation, which that doesn't even work now, because now they want you, every Wi-Fi wants you to, basically log in. But the reason they do that is basically to make you more identifiable on the network, to be able to basically sift out your traffic. So that removes most of the point of that. And it just, like, holy fuck, like I just want to be left alone. All right. And then of course, Windows telemetry shit. Like one of the things that alarmed me was basically I woke up, and the first way I noticed something was up is now I noticed that like the taskbar, whatever they call it, where you hover over the group of icons and it pops up all the windows in that group on the taskbar, right? Used to, it was instantaneous. Now, like I might have to, first of all, I have to click on the taskbar, and then I might have to hover over one of those icons for 3, 4, 5 seconds before it'll pop up. Anytime I see some, what someone else might consider minor UI difference like that, instantly, like, I'm like, all right, they're fucking with something. So I looked that up, and sure enough, according to what I can tell from the last, month or so, they've done new bullshit updates. And of course, it's updates, about AI, adding AI to everything. And, of course, their telemetry stuff. And, I've tried editing host files and different shit. I've seen some script that's supposed to be basically I think it's a software firewall to block a bunch of, Microsoft update stuff. But the problem is, if it's a software firewall, like I think it is, well, if it's in Windows itself, Windows will just ignore it. And even if it's an actual router kind of, set up firewall settings, blocking shit, well, Microsoft at any time could just add new ones. And then they're always silently updating the OS. This is another form of control that I noticed a long time ago with Steam. And, Steam is evil. Gabe Newell is evil because that's just how it is. But, 22 years ago, everyone, like, nobody thought that Steam was going to work. They all kind of thought it was bullshit. And the way that they forced it was World Opponent Network getting shut down. But one of the problems I realized really early on with Steam was something that was considered a selling point that is actually a downside, and that basically all these platforms do nowadays, such as Windows 11, where there really are no incremental updates anymore, right? There's no patch version. In the past, I mean, that's why people still today call all the Counter-Strikes before Source, they just call it 1.6. Because, there was the beta versions in 1.0, 1, 2, 3, 4. I started playing on World Opponent Network with 1.5. I got the second edition Platinum Collection in 2003. And so I started playing on WAN, World Opponent Network, on 1.5. But that's the thing. In the past, it was these kind of major patches. And like if you didn't want to play that patch, you just didn't download it. Well, nowadays, they really don't do patches anymore. They just are constantly rolling updates. These small minor changes, there's really no versioning, at least not on our end. Maybe Steam has these very minor ways to pick, like a beta branch or like, with CS2, you can pick CSGO, or like some shit like that. But it's just another way to obliterate history, and it just this carpet bombing tactic of, basically digital book burning is like there are no versions, essentially. And it's pretty hard to be able to recall any of that when they're essentially pushing these little updates constantly, and they won't even let you play the fucking game unless you update it like how they want, right? One of the blessings of how I have to have my internet set up right now is that maybe there's options in Steam itself, but it doesn't seem to acknowledge the proxy stuff. Like even the system time won't update correctly. So like, at this point my laptop is like 15 minutes off of the actual time. It's, over the course of 4 months, that's how far it's drifted. I mean, and I haven't manually fixed it because that could just be. I'm always scared to death of changing anything on the piece of shit because that could just, I could try to change that and then it locks the system up. And if I'm forced to restart, that could fuck up a lot of shit for me. And these are just so many things I didn't consider when I first installed Windows. And, the sort of digital astroturfing shit, it always, with Windows now, comes with all these AI and telemetry updates. And it's just another way of robbing information, or like how they do online activation now, right? So there are no cracks for modern Windows. because of how they actually want to tie it to a hardware idea.